So I think leadership is always very important. Just like when you talk about Mali or the Rastafarians and so on, it is very often leaders like that, the Marcus Garveys, who help to people to focus and stop and think about where they are and what they ought to be thinking about. And that leads movements, mass movements, even for a while, and these flows come. Something is achieved, then it probably dies out for a while until the next wave of leaders come to call people to another development of their own progress. Does that make some sense, perhaps?
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And because you are a literary expert, you're a writer, you're a poet,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to understand it from you.
Yes.
What do you think is the role of literature in awakening, particularly the younger generation?
Yes.
Because today, 2022, we are living in a particular world
Mm-hmm.
in that we have opportunity that have become almost a curse. I'm talking of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Internet is a huge opportunity.
Yes.
But what do we do with this?
Precisely. And social media, correct? Twitter, all
So,
exactly.
how can literature be useful for us in reawakening us so that we can participate in our own rescue? Help me.
Again, we come back to the consciousness of the writers, those who are writing. We can't tell writers what to write, but we would hope in our own context of Africans, African diaspora, Caribbean, that there'd be writers writing, whether fiction, non-fiction, poetry, drama, who'd have among their themes just what you're talking about. Young African diaspora people, for example, a play, can you imagine a play? A couple of young black people, men and women, and maybe among them one or two come to some awakening of Africa today, not just some romantic view of Africa in the past. And the play shows this young man or young woman reconnecting with Africa. And if the play is well written, well done, well performed, this could be a very look at what happened with the Wakanda thing. Yeah, very kind of romanticized and all the rest of it. Very popular, and we can have question marks about many things in it. But I saw it, and what it did, I think, to black people was somehow awaken something positive. Yeah, you may critique the Wakanda films and so on, but I think what it did was offer something, especially to young black people, which could be worked with, put it that way. But we don't need just the romanticized stuff. We need reality stuff. And therefore, writers, now, a connection. There's a man I know called Kwame Dawes, whom you might know, Jamaica. Well, born in Ghana, raised in Jamaica, lives all over the world, now lives in the States, and he's got a big name in the States as a writer. And he has created an African writers series, and he's working with new and upcoming writers, finding money to sponsor publication of their books. Here's a man who's dedicating his life alongside his own work, settled in Nebraska of all places, to somehow bringing the work of young African writers out to the diaspora and to the wider world, and somehow helping people in the West to know what's happening with African writing. But that's what writers can do, whether as an editor or publisher. As a writer, how does Africa and African peoples enter your work? In a positive sense, but also in a realistic sense. Because you don't want to sugarcoat things, you know? The Caribbean is a beautiful place, all the rest of it is no paradise. There's a lot of gun crimes, increasing ever in the Caribbean, gun crime. Look at what's happening in Haiti. A lot of gangs are controlling Port-au-Prince and so on now. In St. Lucia, we have gun crime. Throughout the Caribbean now, gun crime is a serious thing. And a lot of politics in the Caribbean, there are a lot of people imitating Trump. So if you write about the Caribbean, you can't sugarcoat it. If you write about Africa, you can't sugarcoat it. You have to write the realistic what's happening there. But I think the best writers always give some glimmer of possibility. What is possible? What of hope? Because these are homes. How can we live there? How can we make these homes make sense? How can we move to positions of stability? How can we help in our own way? Even though you may sit in your study and write a book and put, you don't know who's reading the work. Wait, I don't know who's reading my work. But we have to hope that our writings have find their way through to readers who can be influenced to do even more than we do in terms of reading. And I said, the internet, you're doing a podcast. And to me, a podcast and use of the internet have strong literary affiliations. This is to me as a writer. But this is a literary kind of format in terms of we are talking about issues. And that's related to writing about the issues. So broadcast is very important in terms of that cultural, literary, social awareness development. I think we have to look to use the internet and social media more positively. There's a lot of negative stuff out there. This guy Elon Musk has just bought Twitter, and it's not already the hate speech has risen immediately on Twitter. How do we as conscious Black people use those means? I use Facebook, but I don't deal with all the negative stuff. I use to promote literature and positive things. I have a Twitter about how to use Twitter myself. I use Facebook, of course. I use Gmail, and I have an author page my son manages for me. So writers have always had and will continue to have a big part to play in terms of speaking to our own people first and foremost. Before we write for the white man in New York, so I can have a bestseller on the New York Times and satisfy the need of white critics and so on, write for them. Who am I writing for? Who am I writing for? Very often I say, I don't even know who I'm writing for. I'm writing for whoever picks up my books to read them. But in writing, in my own eye and air, I'm writing for whoever will read. But the things I say are written for people who should be able to understand what I'm talking about. If I write about the Caribbean and the islands and the language I use, and I talk about Rasta and I talk about this and that, they should know I'm speaking to them in our own shared language. A white man from England may be able to read and get some things, but my Caribbean people or even African diaspora should be able to read and pick up things out of what I write in a deeper sense, perhaps even the European, because I'm going to talk about my diaspora history and the history of colonialism and the effects. And maybe the white reader may not want to read about those things. So the writer has a big role and serious role to play, as writers have always done. Whether James Baldwin in America, Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, Derek Walcott, Caribbean writers like Earl Lovelace, George Lamming. Question is, though, Obey, who is reading what we write? Who is reading what we write? I don't know who's reading my work. I really do not know, frankly. I have not won any big awards. When you win awards or prizes, people go buy the book, whether or not they read it. I'm not in that league. So I don't know who's reading my work, but I put my work out.